Hello. Hey, everybody. How you doing? That was a Comic-Con. Day number 1. Exciting. I know. All right, we got a big weekend ahead of us, but for me, I'm going to be here all weekend. My name's Tanner. I'll be moderating a few panels this weekend, and we're going to kick this thing off in a pretty big way for me. I'm a big fan of this show. Anyone watch Married with Children? All right, well, you know him as Bud Bundy. Let's bring him on out here. David Faustino, everybody.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Yeah. Hamilton.
So, do you do lots of these things? Do you do a lot of cons?
I do, I would say, like average maybe 2 to 3 a year.
Cool.
Been to Niagara Falls. I did the Niagara Falls convention, I want to say maybe 3-4 years ago.
Cool. Do you like to kind of walk around as a fan when you come to these things? Do you do a little shopping? Do you ever cosplay? Do you dress up? Or do you...
I usually dress up as Bud Bundy, and it works well for me.
You do a great job.
I've done, no one's caught me yet. No, I try to, as soon as I have like a lull at my table, which, happens, I'll usually, start taking a walk around.
Yeah.
And then, but it's always cool to meet the fans and just hear how much, because you don't realize, like, when you're doing a show, how much it affects the fans, or how much laughter it brought to their home, say, or with their family, until you meet the fan. Thank you. Until you meet the fans and they tell you, and so it's cool.
And you've been in the acting game for a long time. How old were you when you started? You were like...
Well, my very, very, very first gig, I come from a showbiz family, so I kind of just literally fell out of the crib and into it. My first job was on a Lily Tomlin special. I was 3 months old. I was a little baby. I played her daughter.
Wow, so literally like your entire life you've been doing this.
Yeah, my entire life. And then from then, even before Married with Children, I did Fantasy Island and Love Boat and Family Ties and what's the one with Michael Landon, of course, Little House on the Prairie, and all that stuff. And then I auditioned for Married with Children when I was 12, and I actually didn't get the job the very first run. They shot the pilot with 2 other cast members who played Bud and Kelly, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out, lucky for us, and they held auditions again, and I decided to go. I had a new agent, they snuck me in again, and I ended up getting it. So.
Wow, did you ever think, getting on that show that it would have the run that it did? It lasted a long time. People loved the show. Did you when you were on set those first few days, did you think this was this is something special?
Well, I was so young, but I knew it was really funny because like everybody, you would hear this rumble about it being one of the funniest scripts people had read in years, and the laughter that was happening on the set. But as a kid, you don't. Especially the kind of adult humor that Married with Children had, you don't really get most of the jokes. And then about the 3rd season is when we really took off, and it became like this giant. Then you couldn't even leave the house. It was kind of wild.
You directed it.
I didn't know. I wrote a couple episodes, and I've directed other things, but not in Married with Children.
That's right. I thought because you wrote an episode with was your brother. Was your brother in that episode? Was
my
that right?
brother.
Was that incorrect Wikipedia information? Right?
No. He did 2. Well, there is a piece of incorrect Wikipedia information that says I have another brother with a different last name that I've never heard of this individual. By the way, I have no idea who he is or why he's my brother, but. My actual brother, Michael Faustino, was in 2 episodes. One of the episodes, he played the car wash attendant. He looks we're pretty similar. And then the other episode he did was the Santa Claus episode. It was a Christmas episode where he plays one of the neighbor children, and he's sitting on Al's lap, who's playing Santa. And Al says, he asks Al for something, and he says, he goes, your mother is the woman in the neighborhood who bakes all the pies for everybody except for those nice Bundys. He says, yeah. He goes, well, someday tell Daddy to come home right around when Mr. Mailman's around. And he says, what do I get? He goes, a fresh new mommy and a brand new house, or something like that. That's pretty funny. So yeah, he did a couple episodes. He's an actor. My dad was a costumer. That's kind of how we got into the business. So it's been like a showbiz family. Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And I got to talk about this too, because I actually just recently revisited this show, Entourage.
Oh yeah.
Where you showed up as yourself, which is amazing. Was that a hard ask for you to be involved in that, or did you jump on that right away?
Oh no, I jumped right on it because those guys, Doug Ellen, the creator writer, is a great guy, and I knew Doug, and obviously it was a hot show, HBO, and I jumped right on it. I got to do a couple episodes, and then I got to be in the film, which was awesome. And so they've been really loyal and just a great group of guys, especially Kevin, both Kevins, just great guys. I've known Kevin Connolly. He did a show that Ron Levitt, who created Married with Children, he created another show called Unhappily Ever After, which Kevin starred in. People either loved or hated that show. It was basically, as Ron Levitt said, he said, well, it's the same. He would compare it to Married with Children. He'd say, same show, we just have a puppet. So. But Kevin started that show, and he's a great guy, so it's fun to do.
And of course, you've done a lot of other things besides the acting on screen stuff. A lot of writing as well, and which is what you're currently doing, right? You're still doing a lot of writing.
Yeah. Well, I created a show called Starving for Crackle a few years back that I created, produced, directed along with my partners. And then right now I'm writing a half-hour pilot that I just finished writing, which I'm really happy about, excited about. We're taking it out now. So I just stay creative in that way. And then, as you mentioned, I think the voiceover stuff is what really keeps me busy right now has been voiceover. It's been a tremendous second career for me. I've been really blessed and lucky to have that over the last 15, 20 years. And it's a great gig. I used to, miss the sort of glitz and glamour of being on set, which I still enjoy, and all of that. But after having a child and settling down, when you compare a 14-hour day on set to a hour to 2-hour recording session down the street from your house, it doesn't compare. So I really started to appreciate it for what it is now.
So how do you go into doing a voice acting or a voiceover role? How do you prepare? How does that differ from what you do on screen?
I won't lie, it's easier. I'm not gonna try to BS. It's easier. However, that said, you still have to put the exact same amount of you have to fully 1,000% go for it. But you're not on screen, so you can act a little more, and also you don't have to memorize really. So I'll get really familiar with it, but it's a lot easier. But the way I prepare is almost like I would prepare for an acting job. I try to give it 1,000% and really commit and go for it. Yeah.
Now I know we have a lot of fans here that many of you have questions, so we'll get to your audience questions in a little bit. So if you don't have one, you can start thinking right now. But before we get there, I want to talk because all these shows are coming back, all these favorites are coming back to television. I know there's been some talk about Married with Children making a return. Anything you can say about that?
Yeah, they have been wanting to do it for a while, and I think Ed, he was doing Modern Family, Katie was doing Sons of Anarchy. And so I think they were hesitant, and then now they really want to do it, both of them. I've talked, and Christina. The problem now is that there is a legal issue that they've run into with the son of one of the creators, who's been very difficult to work with Sony, and so he's made it almost impossible. So I don't know that it will happen. We'll see if they can work out the issue. It will, and if they don't, it won't. And it's that kind of simple.
Would you guys want to see it return?
Yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun, especially the streaming services. You can get away with, in some regards, you can get away with more raunchy humor, but in some regards, you can nowadays get away with less raunchy humor, depending on what the joke is.
Yeah, how do you think the show would kind of change now? It would have to change a little bit. There's certain jokes that a few years ago that obviously wouldn't go anywhere now, and vice versa. Do you think it would still kind of hold up, or have to be kind of totally revamped?
I think it would have to be revamped slightly. Not a lot, but yeah, revamped. I don't think Al could say some of the things. Well, I guess Al would be retired out of the shoe store, or maybe not. Knowing Al, he'd still be there, breaking his back. Right? Yeah. Till he'll die there. Yeah. So he wouldn't be able to. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to say some of the things that he's said in the shoe store, I think, to some of the ladies that came in there, maybe, and a few other jokes. But
what do you think Bud would be up to now? What do you think?
Bud, what would Bud be up to? He'd probably be the one that like somehow got rich somehow, you know?
Yeah.
He somehow got rich, and
It's a weird pyramid scheme, and it just worked out.
yeah, it worked out. And being the way that they treated him the whole time, he probably doesn't give them a dime. It doesn't help them out at all.
I think we wrote this thing already. Let's just get
let's
into
do it.
action. Let's go. All right, now audience questions. Anybody out there have a question for David? Just throw up your hand, and we'll get to you. And let's start. Yeah, let's start right there in the back.
Can you tell us your funniest blooper moment?
Funniest blooper moment.
Funniest blooper moment on Married with Children. Let's see. I mean, we had so much fun on that set. It was one of those sets where kind of anything went from the producers on down, Ron Levitt and Michael Moy. They just created an environment that was happy and fun, and we really did get along. We were like family. There was a couple moments, we had a lot, we taped in front of a live studio audience, so, sometimes when you're in front of a live studio audience and you go up on a line or a speech where you started getting your head about it, even though you know it, now the audience is there, and then you forget it one time, then you do it again and again, and then you just get stuck. And I remember that would happen to Ed once in a while, and I remember one guy once, and Ed just was so frustrated, like he had done it 10 times and he couldn't get it. And someone was like, "Oh, it's okay, Al." And Ed's not, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu and everything. And he just looked up and he goes, "You want to go a couple rounds, mother? You know what?" It was pretty funny.
Amazing. Thank you so much. The other question, let's go to you first, over on the side, yeah?
In Modern Family, I doubt it. I actually did an episode of Modern Family, and to tell you how much that's not being talked about, I was actually not in a scene with Ed in the show. So it's like I just played a random character, and instead of them having us have a moment, even just a moment where we like looked at each other weird, I wasn't even in a scene with him. So it just was I just happened to audition for the show and got like this weird role on it. And I thought that they would, take a moment to have us have that moment, but they decided not to. So I thought it was a missed opportunity, but I don't write it, I just show up.
All right, thank you. Yeah, over to you.
My favorite episode of Married with Children. Okay, so my favorite episodes, I have a couple. I have 3, I think. I think my first favorite one is when Santa Claus is supposed to parachute down into the mall and ends up dead in our backyard. Yeah, which was a great. We're trying to have our Christmas dinner, and the coroner is coming in and out, and it was pretty funny. And I remember one of my favorite lines was. It was when the original Steve was there, David Garrison, and we're sitting there eating, we're stuff on our faces, and like I said, they're carrying a dead body out, and Steve looks, he goes, "You ghouls!" And then Al turns to him and goes, "What do you want us to do, Steve? Quit eating?" But it was a great episode, and then the other one I really liked was another Christmas episode, was the one with Sam Kinison, where we had the two-parter. Those were some great episodes. We had a great time with him. So those are 2 that ring true. And then we had one that was called Johnny Be Good, which was what they call a real-time episode, meaning it was literally a 22-minute span in the Bundy's life where they were trying to get ready to go get this burger that Al wanted really bad. I can't remember how it ended, but it was a fun episode.
Cool.
They didn't make it, man.
Thank you. All right, let's go over to you. Yeah, the Canadians, yeah.
Who came up with the Grandmaster B character? Well, I have, I've been a hip hop fan since I was a kid. I got into it really young, and I started running hip hop clubs while I was doing the show. And all of a sudden, these rappers would start coming to the set of Married with Children, including Ice Cube, and the list goes on, Eazy-E, and so the writers started going like, what's going on with Dave here? Why are all the rappers showing up here? So they, obviously knew I was into it, and so it was kind of their way of poking fun a little bit at me. But I had fun, and the fans loved the idea of it, and then it took on its own, grandmother being and the whole thing. So it just kind of, took on a life of its own. But it started from them making fun of me, really. Yeah.
Amazing. And you got a question right there, so go ahead. Which character
would I want to do, and how would I say? I don't have an answer for that. The way I do it is I read these great auditions and scripts that come through with these great characters, and some of them are just so funny and so well written, as great or better than any live action characters on television. And as a matter of fact, not to yank my own chain, but the character I play on Dragons, which is the How to Train Your Dragon series, which is on Netflix, the series version. I play Dagger, who's this bumbling idiot bad guy who thinks he's just this evil genius, and really he's just this moron. And it's so much fun to play because it's just fun, that kind of writing, that kind of comedy.
Cool. Thank you. We got a question, yeah, right in the back. It's there.
We just discussed that briefly. What I was saying is that there is a little legal issue that they've run into, and they've run into a little legal issue, not just a little one, a major legal issue they're trying to work out. If it works out, we will do it, yes, because everybody wants to do the whole class. And if they don't work it out, we won't. So we'll see. But fingers crossed.
Cool. Thank you. Let's go. We have one question on this side, I thought,
Oh, thank you. He was asking about a show called Starving. I mentioned it early on that my partners and I created for the Crackle platform. We did I think 12 episodes. Very funny show. Very loosely. I play myself in the show. It's a very cartoonish version of what my life would be. And when I say cartoon, as you know, I mean we really take it there. We take it to 11. None of these things would actually happen in real life, but we took my life and said, what would happen if I was completely destitute, spent all my money, and we kind of took it from there. I live in the Hollywood Hills, but there happens to be this house, which you see in the show, that's up the street that has been abandoned and everything for years. It's been sitting there dilapidated. So we're like, let's make that my house. And so we just really took what it would be like and we just exaggerated the crap out of it. And then part B, to answer your question, is, as a matter of fact, it's funny you ask because Sony just lately has been kind of looking at the episodes again and saying, because we were before our time. That was before the streaming services had reached, the masses and people were streaming everything they're watching. So now that that's come back around, there is re-interest in creating some more episodes. So we're talking to them and see what happens. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
And if being on a show as long as you have with Married with Children, at what point do you kind of have an influence in the character of Bud? Like, does that, in the beginning, it's all on script, but then as time goes on, do you start kind of, involving yourself more and more and changing the direction a bit?
No, well, only in so much as what they find your strengths and weaknesses are as an actor, or what you bring, and that inspires them to then write for your strengths. We didn't have any, nor would I even try to, with that level of writing and have that kind of say. Now, that said, if we were on set and during the rehearsal, because the way we would do Married with Children is we would read the script on a Monday, we'd have the table read, and then, and then we would rehearse, Tuesday through Thursday, and then we would tape the show Friday night with 2 different audiences. So they would bring in the first audience, we would tape it, much like a play. That audience would go home, we'd go eat, come back with a new audience, do the same show, and then they splice the 2 best parts of it together. But to answer your question, in the process of rehearsal, if you would find something that was just hilarious and you made something up in ad-lib, the writers, by all means, would absolutely put it in. They weren't they weren't closed off to that, but they were great writers, so we didn't really have too much input in the actual dialogue.
And working with a live audience, pros and cons of that. I feel like the pro would be you can feed off the energy of the crowd, but then there's got to be probably, you ever have like hecklers, you ever have people that just you got to kick people out if they don't kind of behave? Well,
toward the end, a lot of people, they would show up just drunk, to be quite honest with you. They really would. Because they would, they'd have these it was a huge college show, and you'd have these buses from and they would just be wasted. And those shows weren't as fun because they weren't genuinely they were kind of laughing at the idea of it. They weren't really listening. So those audiences, but for the most part, for me, I prefer an audience any day over a non-audience because, like you said, it really just feeds you. You would rehearse something all week long and then not find the exact right way to play it, and the audience would show up, and somehow intuitively you would just do something that you never even knew was there before. It's a weird phenomenon.
And then going to the last day of production of shooting the show, what was that like? Do you remember that day?
Well, it was kind of a bummer the way the show ended, and not just for us, obviously, as the family that we had become, but for the fans who had, really supported the show through the 11 seasons and been there for us and been there for the network and the advertisers, and then as a sort of just a strict and cold business decision, last minute, because they were very on the fence, Fox, as to whether they were going to pick it up for a 12th season or not, and at the very last minute, the numbers didn't add up for them, and they decided to pull it. Unfortunately, they tried to trick the audience into this final episode that they advertised to the audience, and people were like, "Oh, this is the final episode." And they tuned in, and obviously it wasn't a final episode; it was just an episode. And I think it was a cruel kind of way to end it for the fans. Not to mention us, of course, we didn't even know, so we left going home that night not knowing if we were coming back. And so it was kind of a bummer to end the show that was on that long that way, but at the end of the day, we all had a blast doing it. It was an 11-year tremendous run, and I think we brought a lot of laughter to a lot of people. So, yeah, really good time.
So as they wrap it up and they start to kind of dismantle everything, do you take anything home as a little souvenir of your memories of set?
There was an episode, I don't know if you guys remember this episode, it was the most bizarre episode where I feel like it was, Kelly and I were doing this TV show, and it was like a castle, and I had this puppet that I was talking, I don't know what that was, but anyway, I ended up with that puppet. And I did end up, because the life-size dolls that we used to use, that they would throw off the roofs and stuff, they would actually they made a cast of our face, and it was actual body weight. So it's I only weigh 125 pounds. So it was a 125 pound thing. So I actually got to keep that as well while we were doing it. And I used to put it in my back seat as my carpool passenger. It was really terrifying to look in the rear view and have this basically dead version of yourself staring back at you.
Bizarre if you got pulled over.
Very bizarre. It never happened. I kind of wish it had. Yeah.
We have time for a couple more audience questions. Do we have anything else out there? Because okay, yeah, let's go right to the back. Pardon? Vanna White? What was it like having Vanna White on the show?
Cool? No, I don't know. I was so young when that episode came on that I only knew her, from her turning the letters. I remember her being nice. That was an early episode, though.
Any other questions? Oh, on the side there. Sorry, let's go over to you.
Oh yeah, that's right. Someone at my table had reminded me about that earlier. He's talking about the episode where Marcy and I kind of have a moment, right? It was cool. Amanda's great. She doesn't prefer my type, but she's a great woman. We had a great time doing it because we're such good friends. It was a gas. Christina, the whole cast, just a great set, man. We didn't fight, and there was no egos. It was just a really great set. Well, the first Steve, David Garrison, a little bit of a toot. I love the guy, but I think he wanted, when the show first started, I thought they think it was going to be more about the neighbors and them together, and the kids would kind of come in and out. Well, actually, when Christina and I started, finding our voices, and the writers started writing a lot more for us, I think David was a bit disappointed about that, which is what sent him back to New York. They didn't fire him. He left on his own accord. They wanted him to stay. They tried to get him to stay. And he wouldn't. And to this day, I've talked to him, and he says it was one of the biggest mistakes he's ever made in his life. as you can tell, because the movie career he went on to was just tremendous. Kidding. Well, Ted's great. Ted McGinley, who played Jefferson. Love Ted. One of the nicest people you can possibly meet. Great guy.
Yeah, talking about kind of looking back in retrospect, and you know, considering you started so young, anything knowing what you know now, would you have changed when you stepped into the industry?
Oh, I mean, like anybody with a life. I mean, what would you have changed about yours?
Well, you're young, and in the acting world, it's challenging, and there's a lot of
Yeah. Well, you mean regarding?
Yeah. No, regarding the just.
No, I mean, I to be part of an iconic show that lasted for 11 years and to meet the fans across the world, man, across the world, is just mind-boggling to me. I would never give that up for a heartbeat. And I still make a living doing what I love, whether it be in voiceover or on camera, and I'm just really grateful. I love what I do. I don't even have an education. There's nothing else I could do. I was educated on set, so you know how that goes.
Being such a young actor when you started, do you think it's easier now for young actors in Hollywood, or do you think the game has changed a lot since then?
I think in some regards it's easier for young actors in that there's more content. There's a lot more content. I mean, when we were coming up, there was 3 channels: CBS, NBC, ABC, and then we ushered in Fox. So in one regard, there's a lot more opportunity for young actors. On the other hand, with social media now, and it's just so odd. I didn't have to worry about that growing up. About everything you say now is scrutinized, and so I feel for the young kids who are young and ignorant and trying to just do the best they can and grow up, and who are under a microscope the way they are. Because if everything I did at that age was blasted on the social media, I probably would have been locked up in jail. I mean, I was just a wild kid, so I feel bad for that, but
also having the fans and having people just constantly you'll do something you think is great, and then you're gonna get a tweet about it, and you're kind of doubting yourself now. They can really
yeah, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. I used to, when Twitter first came out, you go to the club and you go out and come home and you drunk tweet. I stopped doing that early on. The worst thing you can do is drunk tweet, as Roseanne Barr proved to us. Right?
Well, we have time for a couple more audience questions, then we're going to wrap it up. So yeah, let's go over to you.
Buck was a great dog. He really was. He was a tremendous dog, and I was sad when he went. As we are, dogs just got a bum deal with that 12-year lifespan they have. What's that about? Sucks for us too, because we got to keep losing them. He was a great dog, tremendous dog. Cool. And the follow-up dog, Lucky. I don't know what they were thinking about that. That was it. How do you go from Buck to Lucky? I think that was almost as a good only second worst idea was the worst idea before that was Seven, the child that they brought in for. Do you remember how they had the milk carton? We had a run where they brought in a child. For whatever reason, we still can't figure it out. But they were like, "Oh, let's I don't know what that was about." But it only lasted like half a season? Was it about a season? If that, like half a season. And then they realized it, so they wrote him out. And but later on, there was a subsequent episode. We were eating breakfast, and there was a milk carton, and you pan in on the milk carton, and you see Seven's face. Have you seen me? In the milk carton. It was pretty funny.
So how often do you revisit the show? I feel like you're compared to some other people who've done shows years ago. Your memory is pretty sharp still. You're still pretty fresh.
Well, because those moments stick out, those classic moments. But a lot of these people, they remind me of the favorite episodes. Like, oh yeah, that's right.
Do you ever go back and watch it, or if it comes on TV and you're scrolling through, do you ever stop?
If I'm scrolling through and I come across it, I will. And it's always a cool, nostalgic moment. But I don't have it on DVR. Put it that way.
All right, I think we had one last question right in the front here. Did you? Yeah, go ahead. He's asking about if there's like a storyline or a character that if it's not working, how long do you have to figure that out? And it's ratings. I think for us, for the Seven, for that specifically speaking, that was just simply us knowing in the moment that it wasn't working.
because of the humor. And to be honest with you, and this is no disrespect to that child, he was not an actor. I mean, he most obviously, that is not his calling in life, and it's not a lot of people's. He might be great at something, but that wasn't his, and he didn't understand. He didn't understand staging. He didn't understand what we were doing there, and so that was part of the problem as well. But I think it just wasn't working, wasn't funny, and that was the name of that tune.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, man.
Thank
It's been
you.
so good chatting with you, David Faustino, and hopefully we'll see you come back as Scott Bundy soon.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Give it up one more time for David, everyone.